In the tumultuous heart of the 13th century, as empires rose and fell with the sweep of a sword, a momentous clash unfolded on the sun-baked plains of the Jezreel Valley, a battle that would alter the trajectory of world history. This was the Battle of Ain Jalut, known in Arabic as Spring of Goliath, and it marked the first major defeat of the seemingly invincible Mongol war machine. To understand the full significance of this encounter, one must journey back through the shifting sands of power, ambition, and survival that defined the era. The world at the dawn of the 1260s was a world in turmoil. The Mongol Empire, engineered by the genius of Genghis Khan and his descendants, had swept over the continents like a storm. From the lush fields of China to the steppes of Central Asia, from the snow-clad mountains of Persia to the edges of Eastern Europe, the Mongol horde seemed unstoppable. Their advance was relentless, their tactics terrifyingly effective, and their reputation for destruction, particularly in cities that resisted, was whispered in dread across nations. By the late 1250s, the Mongols were the supreme force of Eurasia. Under the command of Hulagu Khan, a grandson of Genghis Khan, they turned their gaze westward towards the heartlands of the Islamic world. The Abbasid Caliphate, once the beacon of Islamic civilization, fell to Mongol power in 1258 when Baghdad was stormed and sacked. The city's libraries and palaces, long symbols of learning and culture, were put to the torch, and the caliph himself was executed. The ancient seat of Islamic authority was no more. With Baghdad in ruins, the Mongol tide rolled on. Damascus, the jewel of Syria, was captured next. The Mongols now threatened the last significant bastion of Muslim resistance in the region, the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt. The Mamluks, though formidable warriors, faced a foe that had humbled the greatest empires of the age. Their fate, and perhaps that of the entire Middle East, hung in the balance. The Mamluks were a unique force in the medieval world. Once slave soldiers, many of Turkic or Circassian origin, these men had risen through a ruthless meritocracy, eventually seizing power in Egypt. Their society was shaped by discipline, military prowess, and the constant awareness that their legitimacy rested on the sword. In 1260, their sultan was Qutuz, a leader of sharp intellect and unyielding resolve. At his side was the brilliant General Baybars, a man as cunning as he was courageous. Qutuz and Baybars understood the gravity of the Mongol threat, yet fortune, and perhaps fate, offered them a slender window of opportunity. News reached the Mongol army that the great Khan Munka had died in the distant east. Hulagu, compelled by Mongol tradition to participate in the selection of the next great Khan, withdrew the bulk of his forces from Syria, heading back to Mongolia. But he left behind a formidable detachment under his trusted general, Kitbuqa, a man of Christian faith, yet unwavering Mongol loyalty. Kitbuqa's force numbered between 10 to 20,000, battle-hardened and confident in Mongol supremacy. The Mamluks, by contrast, could muster up to 25,000, mainly cavalry, men who knew the land and the art of war intimately. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through the ages. The night before battle, nerves must have run high on both sides. For the Mamluks, the stakes were nothing less than the survival of their state, and for many, their faith and way of life. For the Mongols, this was a chance to cement their dominance, to open the road to Egypt, and perhaps beyond, to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. On the morning of September 3, 1260, the armies converged near the spring of Ain Jalut, where the waters still flowed, as they had in the time of ancient battles. The Jezreel Valley, broad and open, was framed by rolling hills and fertile plains, a landscape that would soon be scarred by the thunder of hooves and the clash of steel. Baybars, the Mamluk general, orchestrated a masterful plan. Knowing the Mongols' penchant for aggression and their confidence in direct assault, he staged a classic feigned retreat. Mamluk cavalry engaged the Mongols with hit-and-run tactics, drawing them out, appearing to falter, and then falling back deliberately. The Mongols, emboldened, pressed forward, certain that victory was at hand. But Baybars had chosen his ground well. The valley narrowed, the terrain became less favorable for the Mongols' preferred heavy cavalry charges, and the hidden strength of the Mamluk army waited in ambush. As the Mongols pursued what they believed to be a fleeing enemy, the trap was sprung. The main body of the Mamluk force, concealed and fresh, surged forward, attacking the exposed Mongol flanks and rear with ferocity. The battle raged with chaos and fury. Mongol discipline and prowess were legendary, but the surprise and determination of the Mamluks, fighting for their homeland and faith, proved indecisive. Kitbuqa, true to the Mongol code, refused to retreat. He fought with valor, rallying his men even as the tide turned against them. But Mongol numbers dwindled, their formation broke, and many were cut down or captured. At last, the Mamluks encircled Kitbuqa. He was taken alive, defiant to the end, and was executed, a dramatic symbol of Mongol defeat. The remnants of the Mongol army scattered, some fleeing north toward the safety of their distant comrades, others perishing on the field. The aftermath of Ain Jalut sent shockwaves across the medieval world. For the first time, the Mongols, whose advance had seemed inevitable and irresistible, had met with a crushing defeat in open battle. The myth of Mongol invincibility was shattered. The advance into Egypt was halted. The holy cities of Islam were spared from destruction. The victory at Ain Jalut did not merely save the Mamluk Sultanate, it preserved the heartlands of Islamic civilization at a moment of existential peril. The consequences rippled far beyond the battlefield. The Mamluks, once viewed as upstart rulers, now stood as the defenders of the faith, protectors of the Islamic world. Their victory secured their legitimacy, ensuring their dominance over Egypt and Syria for centuries. Cairo rose as a center of Islamic culture and learning, a beacon in a world still shaken by Mongol conquests elsewhere. For the Mongols, the defeat at Ain Jalut marked a turning point. Though their empire remained vast and formidable, their westward expansion was checked. The psychological blow was immense both for the Mongols and for the peoples who had lived in terror of their approach. The legend of Mongol invincibility, so carefully cultivated, had been punctured. Historians have long debated the significance of Ain Jalut. Some compare it to other epical battles, Tours, where Charles Martel halted the advance of the Umayyad Caliphate in Europe, or Hastings, where Norman power reshaped the destiny of England. Ain Jalut stands among these milestones, not merely as a clash of armies, but as a moment when the future of civilizations hung in the balance. The victory also had deeper cultural and religious implications. The preservation of Islamic lands from Mongol rule allowed for the continued flourishing of science, art, and philosophy in Cairo, Damascus, and beyond. The holy cities of Mecca and Medina remained untouched, their sanctity preserved. For generations to come, Muslims would look back on Ain Jalut as a sign of divine favor and the resilience of their community. The Mamluks, emboldened by their triumph, became the standard-bearers of the Islamic world. They invested in grand architectural projects, sponsored scholars and artists, and forged a legacy that would endure until the rise of the Ottomans in the 16th century. Their victory at Ain Jalut was not just a military success, but a turning point in the cultural and spiritual history of the region. In the broader sweep of history, Ain Jalut represents the limits of empire and the unpredictable power of human resolve. No force, however mighty, is immune to defeat. No destiny is entirely foreordained. The clash between Mongol ambition and Mamluk determination reminds us that the course of history can hinge on the courage and cunning of those who refuse to yield. As the centuries passed, the memory of Ain Jalut remained vivid in the chronicles of both East and West. It was a testament to the resilience of a people, the brilliance of their leaders, and the enduring importance of a single, fateful day. The Spring of Goliath, once a quiet landmark in a fertile valley, became forever etched in the annals of history, a place where the tide of conquest was turned and a civilization was saved from the edge of oblivion. Thus, the Battle of Ain Jalut stands not only as a military victory, but as a symbol of hope and resistance. It is a reminder that even in the darkest hour, when all seems lost, the courage and ingenuity of a determined few can change the destiny of millions. The world we know today, shaped by the boundaries and cultures that survived that fateful clash, is in part a legacy of the men who fought and prevailed on the fields of Ain Jalut.